Well, good morning, everyone. We are continuing now with Laws of the Soul webinar commentaries. We're on number 25, Esoteric Psychology 2, page 193. And we've seen that some of the laws of group progress are initially listed in this book, under the law of group progress. The 10 C groups, somewhat by other names, are listed in this book, Esoteric Psychology, and later it appears that they were developed in the book, or at least in those parts of the Tibetan's teaching that went into the book, Discipleship in the New Age, Volume 1. There's a lot of transfer of text between the two, but there are some significant differences, and so we can discuss that at some point. We are now dealing with, let's see, the central force of the united inner groups will pour through the outer groups insofar as a group does the following, and we've used these abbreviations: right rapport, right objectives, application of the laws of the soul, and right use of energies. These, if an outer group upholds these four requirements, then the laws or the energies of the one great inner group which lies behind the outer groups will pour through them. So DK takes this idea now a little further. What would the following sequence of statements convey anything to our minds in this connection? I guess he's hoping that it will. It is a statement of fact and is not in the least symbolic in its terminology, except insofar as all words are inadequate symbols of inner truths. And this is a principle that we have to grasp here. And he's always emphasizing this principle because he finds words really hopeless to convey the subtle things that not quite hopeless, but really insufficient to convey the subtle truths that he would like to convey. So, okay, so let's go to these statements, which are not in the least symbolic, but are direct statements of facts relating to the groups on the inner side and the outer groups. Each group has its inner counterpart, and maybe, I think, larger, stronger, better trained, clearer. Those would be my guesses about this. The inner counterpart is a complete whole. Okay. The outer result is only partial. At the moment, partial, and in process of formation, and never will be, I suppose, as complete as the inner group. These inner groups forming one group are each of them expressive of or governed by certain laws, embodying the controlling factors in group work. Each of them expressive of, governed by certain laws. Will these laws be the same or different for every group? Each of them expressive of or governed by certain laws, and let's just ask, are these the same laws? Or different on the basis of the nature of the group? I mean, certainly some of the laws must be the same anyway. A law is only an expression or manifestation of force applied under the power of thought by a thinker or a group of thinkers. A manifestation of force is sustained, let's say, a sustained and willed manifestation of force. And as long as the inner thought is sustained and the outgoing force is sustained, the law is inviolable. So it really, excuse me, really is related to the will of a superior entity or group of entities. These inner groups embodying different types of force, okay, well, there's our answer. I mean, some of them, of course, all of them will embody the laws of the soul, but they do have different ray forces, certainly, and maybe astrological forces, because they have different objectives. Different ray and astrological forces, and working synthetically to express certain laws, are an effort to bring in new and different conditions and hence produce a new civilization. So let us say that from the successful expression of these inner groups through their corresponding outer groups, a new civilization will arise. This is the new age that the Aquarian age will see consummated. So the Aquarian age per se is not the new age, is not the new age, but will, and I suppose those should be, yes, they should be capitalized because they are of importance. So here we go. New age, but will contribute strongly to anchoring this new age, which will persist into later ages, later precessional ages. This is the new age that the Aquarian age will see consummated. Right. So each group will have different types of force, but will, I would say, operate under the laws of the soul that we have been studying. The outer groups are a tentative and experimental effort to see how far humanity is ready for such an endeavor. And we might say, really, that hierarchy never fully knows how ready humanity may be for the newer initiatives and possibilities. Okay, so that is the third of these Roman numeral points. It began, point 3, they are the externalization of an inner condition, and we try to remember here, at least I try to remember, if I can go back that far. It's quite a ways, actually. The law of group progress. So, looks like they are here. Well, yes, and here we go, number 1 of the italicized concise statements about the groups. They are an experiment in founding or starting focal points, and they are an experiment in inaugurating certain new techniques in work and in modes of communication. And this phrase, modes of communication, was strongly accentuated, and we saw that always new energies, or energies which had hitherto not been in touch with each other, or should we say communicating with each other or becoming one with each other, were in fact brought into relationship through the efforts of the new groups, and they are an externalization of an inner existing condition. And then the fourth one, we reach finally the fourth concise statement. They are also an experiment which has for its objective the manifestation of certain types of energy which will produce cohesion or at one-ment upon the earth. And we can say here that this is necessary if the group soul, well, let's say the soul nature of our planetary logos is to emerge, if the soul nature of our planetary logos is to emerge. The present distraught condition in the world, extremely frictional, inharmonious, ununited, disintegrated, the international impasse, that is before the war, I think, the religious dissatisfaction still prevalent today, the economic and social upheaval of the past few decades are all the result of energies that are so potent, owing to their immense momentum, that they can only be brought into rhythmic activity by the imposition of stronger and more definitely directed energies. So these, let's just say, energies have flowed into humanity, which are so far too strong to handle correctly. But if a new rhythm, or the rhythmic activity of a stronger and more definitely directed series of energies and forces can be brought to bear, then there can be a tranquilizing and a harmonization of the energies which proved too strong. The upheaval is inevitable because the form is not ready to, the form as it existed in its present condition was not strong enough to rightly absorb the flow of energies. And of course these are imposed by great and high sources. The Lord of the constellation Aquarius is making its move, or at least being evoked with respect to our planet. It can have all different kinds of effects on different planets at different times, but due to the vernal equinox of our particular planet, it is being strongly evoked, and the forms that had been created in the Piscean age were not ready for that impact. There are probably other great forms, other great impacts as well. You know, the conclusion of the 250,000 year cycle implied as once around the Pleiades of our solar system and maybe accompanying solar systems, and that certainly is the end of a significant age. With new, if every one of those cycles is ruled by a particular type of energy force, then a new type of energy force would be impacting our entire solar system ever since the time of the Lord Maitreya as the Christ Jesus 2,000 years ago, because that's when that great cycle ended, we have been told. And so the lesser and greater age of Aquarius, well, the lesser age of Aquarius is certainly making its impact, and the greater age of Aquarius soon to make its impact, and that's a 25,000 year cycle. And who knows what other hidden cycles, hidden to the consciousness of most people, are still operative. So we can't absorb it all, you know, we're just overwhelmed. But the energies of the hierarchy, the externalizing hierarchy, can impose regulatory rhythms which will subdue the released forces. So, when the groups are functioning adequately and have achieved not only an internal group unity, but also harmony between the groups, that's so important even now and rarely to be found, among esoteric groups at least, then some peculiar or distinctive and esoteric work can be done which will have its beneficent effect on elevating humanity. Remember, we think back, all of this is under the law of group progress, so all of these steps are for the purpose of elevation, the elevating of the human race. The law of group progress, the law of elevation. Really, we can see what is planned for humanity and how humanity in its present condition, quite low compared to what it should be, will be raised. The hierarchy itself will raise humanity. The probationers have failed. The disciples have failed. This is what we've been told. And now, through a new group process, that great internal group that is our exemplar will succeed in raising humanity to an entirely new vibratory level, a more etheric level, a more real level, a level less attached to the tendencies of the previous solar system governed by the third ray. This solar system is to be governed by the second ray. And we're making that transition even now, and our planet is one of the major places for that transition to begin its process and for certain experiments to occur. Well, now we have a little more here in this law of group progress, the astrology of the new groups. The law of group progress embodies one of the energies which have gradually been released over the past 2 centuries. This law embodies one of those. A fuller tide was swept into activity at the time of the May 1936 full moon. Well, let's just say much goodwill, effort was attempted at that time, and a bit before that time, the new great invocation had been released. The first stanza, let the forces of light bring illumination to mankind, let the spirit of peace be spread abroad, all in the attempt to flood humanity with such goodwill that the imminent war could be avoided. So that, so then one of the energies, let's see which of the energies that is, was swept in at the time of the May 1936 full moon, and now the growth of the group idea, both in its good and bad aspects, can be imminently expected. So it seems that this energy promoted group life. This energy promoted group life. That's GRLF, group life. That would be a good one. GRLF, group life. GRLF. As long as there's group love. Okay. For better or for worse, because we never know how humanity will respond. And as I said, the entire Third Reich, which was the major focal point for the attack against humanity and the planet, came under the sign Aquarius, or at least in the sign Aquarius. I think January 30th, something like that, 1933. As has several times been pointed out to students, this law of group progress, in connection with a certain realized impulse in the minds of men, and this is in its turn the effect of, is connected with a certain realized impulse, and this is in its turn the effect of various types of energy which are playing upon Earth. We don't know them all, but the hierarchy has a much better idea of what is communicating with and impacting Earth at this time, and so they know when to make their moves. The hierarchy, knowing the impacting energies, knows when to make its moves, all sanctioned by Sanat Kumara, who has the greatest grasp under the law of assembly of all these energies coming into the planet and how they may be used. The name, the law of group progress, is the phrase given by human beings to a particular type of energy, which is producing coherence of units in a group. And remember how this fifth law is connected with the second. So we have the law of correspondences, or law of coherence, and the law of magnetic impulse, both together. And the law of coherence suggests the same second ray as the law of magnetic impulse is demonstrating. The same second ray as the law of magnetic impulse is demonstrating. Okay, thus forming the groups into one living organism, because we have the binding magnetic energy here. There can be no coherence without magnetism. These two laws are related, and of course the two numbers are related, 2 and 5. DK says we so often relate the numbers 2 and 6, but we really should be thinking quite a bit of the relationship between the numbers 2 and 5. So a particular type of energy, we might say that every law of the soul brings in a particular type of energy. Now, and the zodiacal energies are different from these energies coming in as the laws of the soul, thus forming them into one living organism. So the many are made one under the law of group progress. We might say it that way. The many are made into one under the law of group progress. The recognitions eventuating are those of group affinity, group objective, and group goal. And these, the groups in which we now participate, are demonstrating to a certain degree. Group affinity, affinity of the individuals for the group in which they find themselves, that's one thing, but of course affinity between the groups as well. So group affinity, group objective, and group goal. It is, in the last analysis, the emergence into the subjective consciousness of the same type of energy which produced that aspect of cohesive action, which demonstrates its tribal, national, and racial unity. So these are earlier forms of group realization. Or it will be a long time before the tribe, the nation, and the race can demonstrate what the disciples are to demonstrate under the law of group progress. In this case, however, the determining factor is not of a physical connotation, nor have these groups a physical plane basis. So let's just say that all of the groups just mentioned do have a physical connotation. The same, geographical location, or the same biology. One might say the same genetics, located in the same physical location. All of this has a basis in the physical body and related to the energies of the previous solar system. And not the law of group progress, because that is really a psychological and spiritual progress. The law of group progress relates to a psychological and especially spiritual soul consciousness progress. So the determining factor is not a physical connotation. They are based on a group idealism, which can only be consciously registered when the units in the group are beginning to function upon the mental plane and are developing the capacity to think things through. So we know if the new group of world servers is an example here, it contains as true members those of the second degree who have a type of mental illumination. They have a kind of spiritual intelligence and mental illumination, and the throat center is involved. So there is a necessity then for members of this group to have, if not a full mental polarization, at least functioning upon the mental plane. And the groups themselves are beginning to function on the mental plane, made up of individuals who already do. So the units in the group can think things through and are not stopped by emotional biases. They can see the proper conclusions. That is, to register in the brain that which the soul has imparted to the mind. And that's a wonderful definition of thinking things through into the brain. I'm noticing that, I think, for the first time, that this is an excellent definition. DFT, DFN, maybe, yes, an excellent definition. So, of thinking things through from the soul, through the mind, and into the brain. We have here a definition of the meditation process as it should be followed by those who, through alignment, have made some measure of soul contact. The meditation process requires soul, mind, brain alignment. These groups are functioning entirely through a subjective relation which produces a subjective integration and activity. So they are independent of the limitations of the dense physical plane, or let's say largely independent of the limitations of the dense physical plane. There are limitations, and of course now the attempt is made for these subjective groups to begin to work more objectively and to reduce the normal limitations to a reasonable amount so that some of the inner quality that they possess can be expressed outwardly. Increasingly, that will be the case with the emerging seed groups. It's not yet the case. It is, after all, it is a 250, 275-year project. Actually, I think I was mistaken when I said 250. So even I said it had gone to would go to 2180, but maybe it's more correct to say 2200 or 2205. When we come to study the astrological implications in connection with these laws, we shall discover that the energies of the zodiacal signs have a specific effect upon the energy of a being whose purpose works out into manifestation through these laws. Now that's an interesting idea. Every law seems to have a being behind it. Let's put that down as a possibility. Every one of these soul laws seems to have a being behind it, and the being is affected by a particular astrological sign. So when we come to study the astrological implications in connection with these laws, Well, we've discussed this to a degree. We're seeing how Scorpio is strongly connected with the first law, and both Pisces and Aquarius with the second. With the law of Libra with the second, the law of magnetic impulse, Pisces and Aquarius with the third. And again, when we're dealing with the fourth law, it might be another Scorpio law, similar to the first, because the power of the first ray is evident in both of them, and also of the fourth ray, since we're dealing with the fourth law and the first ray, and the first law and the fourth ray. And then Capricorn with the fifth law. So when we come to study the astrological implications in connection with these laws, we shall discover that the energies of the zodiacal signs have a specific effect upon the energy of a being whose purpose works out into manifestation through these laws. Now, is it one being for all laws, or one being per law, which are regarded by us as great and inevitable natural laws and also spiritual laws? Well, of course, since these are the laws of group work, naturally the constellation and sign Aquarius will be very important here. But we have seen that there are different astrological energies connected with the different laws. This effect produces a blending of energies, which is both balancing and at the same time impelling. Okay, so we shall see whether we're speaking of energy of a being whose purpose works out through these laws. It could be one being, or it could be more than one being. Certainly we know the being who is the lord of the constellation Aquarius has much effect, or is able to achieve expression through these laws. The being who is the lord of the constellation Aquarius can express through these laws of the soul. But other beings are also involved. Libra, that's definite in the second law. Scorpio, the law of those who choose to die, the law of sacrifice. The choosing to die seems very scorpionic. Even suicide, which is an incorrect way of choosing to die under most circumstances, is connected with Scorpio. And Capricorn with the fifth law. In December of 1935, the energies of Capricorn were augmented by the pouring in of forces from a still greater constellation, which is to our zodiac what the zodiac is to Earth. Well, the Earth is a tiny part. Let's just see if we can get some proportion here. The Earth is a tiny part of a chakra in a cosmic logos. The cosmic logos is the heart center. Well, the cosmic logos is a being in whom our solar system is the heart center, and the Earth is a tiny base of the spine center within that heart center. So the distance between, let's say, the 12 major centers in the head and the base of the spine is quite a distance. So if ours, well, I wonder if this is the dragon, possibly. The dragon has a very close relation. It is representing, I suppose, the elevated base of the spine of the one about whom naught may be said. But anyway, Capricorn is an immensely powerful constellation, so let us simply imagine a constellation which X is to Capricorn as the zodiac of constellations is to Earth. There's an immense difference there. The zodiac of constellations are the most powerful centers in any being. After all, the head center itself is the most powerful center generally, and this zodiac of constellations produces a heart center within the head center. So what is the heart in the head center when compared to Capricorn itself? I don't think he's going to tell us what this constellation may be. It's I'm not sure we can speculate upon what it could be. It just must be immensely powerful, as Capricorn itself is immensely powerful. And is Capricorn in some way related as a base of the spine? And do we have a we have the heart in the head center of the one about whom naught may be said, and that is our entire zodiac of constellations. But it can't be that, because it would be like the entire zodiac of constellations relating to one of their own. Whereas Capricorn is altogether of a higher nature than the Earth. Let's just say that there is an augmentation of Capricorn. That much we are allowed to know. This augmentation will again take place in 1942. Let's just say this is producing the festival week of the new group of world servers. Well, week of the new group of world servers, or what it came to be called was that festival week. It must be remembered that and 1942 was a time when the cycles of 9 and the cycles of 7 came together, and 63 years later, in 2005, the same cycle came together. It must be remembered that from certain angles, the circle of 12 signs or constellations constitutes a special unity which revolves in the center of our circle of influence. This is an amazing statement, and we have to know what those angles are. It must be remembered that from certain angles, of course, that's a qualifier, and maybe not from all angles. And there have been theorists which have seized upon this to speak of a circular rotation, but revolution. Revolution is a kind of movement around a center. It can be kind of a rotation here as well. Some whole turning upon its own axis, but which revolves in the center of our circle of influences. Well, this may be DK's way. Stephen Pugh has done a lot of very good work on this, and this means that the center is the Pleiades, and in some respect, the circle of 12 signs or constellations. Well, is it constellations? Is it signs? Is it both? Because the signs may be aspects of the aura of our own solar logos, and they can perhaps revolve around the solar logos considered as the center, or the signs can be 12, a 12-fold field around our own planet, and does it revolve as well around the center, which is the axis of our own planet? Or are we talking about 12 great constellations which are so distributed in space that if they were to revolve together around the Pleiades and maintain their geometrical integrity, at least as we perceive that geometry, there would have to be huge differences in the proper motion, or the angular motion of the various stars, and one wonders whether they could maintain their integrity, or are these stars constantly changing positions with respect to each other. The outer stars farthest from the Pleiades would have to be revolving at an immense speed, and it might not even be possible. I don't have all the figures here, but if these stars have to approach something like the speed of light to keep their geometrical integrity with the stars with which they are presently associated, we have a real problem, a real contradiction. So 12 signs rotating is pretty much a field around a particular planet like the Earth, or any particular planet, or maybe around the Sun. And that type of 12-fold field could maintain its geometrical integrity. But when we're talking about constellations, all which are at various, the stars of which are at various distances from the Pleiades, considered as the center, then we have an issue about speed, because we know that our planets do not maintain any kind of geometrical integrity with each other. They're always geometrically different, depending on what time we might look at their revolution around the Sun. Now, I think that is a more reasonable way, that the outer stars from the Pleiades would take a much longer time to revolve around the Pleiades than the inner stars. And if that was the case, then no true geometrical integrity of the constellations could be maintained over the period of even one revolution. Just the way our planets are constantly changing their angular relationships with each other, so the members of the constellations would constantly be changing their angular relationships with each other. Well, that's some kind of astronomy which presently is beyond our observational powers. But when we're confronted with a statement like this, that the 12 signs or constellations constitute a special unity which revolves within our universe of heavens, and that's our local, I suppose, one about whom naught may be said, because the term universe doesn't necessarily mean the grand entirety, as our planet revolves in the center of our circle of influences. The only thing is our planet is not a composite made up of tens of, maybe hundreds of stars. And so the stars, being different distances from the Pleiades, will have a different kind of angular velocity. And if they were to maintain their configuration with respect to the Pleiades, the angular velocity of the different stars would be very different from each other, and some of them might have to have the kind of angular velocity that would fly against the laws of physics as we presently know them. But anyway, the zodiac of constellations is a special unity, and there is revolution around a center. That much we can consider. And, you know, I think that the Stephen Pugh's formulation of this is very interesting, and one can see how he arrived at this. However, we have to deal with the units within these constellations and their distance from each other. Some of the stars in the constellation Scorpius are really far away from us and from the Pleiades. And so it's all a question of perspective. Because if they were all the same distance from the center of the Pleiades, a revolution together, maintaining the geometrical integrity of the zodiac as we know it at the moment, would be more possible. Anyway, DK is hinting at mysteries about which we do not know anything, really, or very little. We do know that by the means of this augmentation of the energies of Capricorn during the coming Aquarian zodiacal cycle, groups on Earth can avail themselves of the tide of Capricornian influences which will flow into our radius of registration every 7 years. And this is the reason for the festival week. Festival week of the new group of world servers, a Capricornian opportunity. So maybe we're going to say during the entire Aquarian zodiacal cycle, periodic intensifications of the Capricorn influence will appear. And this augmentation is periodical. So there is a periodical augmentation from some presently unknown source. Let's say would have to be a very large and potent source to maintain the analogy given concerning Capricorn and the Earth. Okay, so there was an augmentation in 1935, and in that respect, let's just say, because there was an augmentation in 1935, much of the new group of world servers process can be dated from that time, though DK really talks about the formation of that intersubjective group from an earlier time. The one just passed gave a tremendous impetus to the new group of world servers and was the cause of the very good reaction in the world to their particular impulse. And I suppose, which one was that? It must have been the 1935 augmentation, the one that's being mentioned. This must have been the 1935 augmentation. This worked out in every nation and in every group as a marked tendency towards goodwill, and there was a strong 1936 second ray cycle too. I once worked out all of these cycles when certain ray energies would be strong, and in the new great invocation was given out in 35, I think, concerning goodwill, and in 1936, I think a very strong second ray effort was underway. And there was much of the second ray in that new great invocation, and this particular, well, the new group of world servers has a fourth ray basis, but also connecting it to the second ray, and this law of group progress, which is so important to the new group of world servers, is strongly connected with the second ray law, the law of magnetic impulse. So there was a second ray attempt to forestall this breaking of tremendously destructive forces upon humanity, really in a way originating from within humanity, but augmented. The seeds of evil may have been within humanity, but they were certainly stimulated by the attack of the Black Lodge, which fanned those seeds into full expression. So this worked out in every nation and in every group as a marked tendency to goodwill. In 1942, there, you see, we see when this was written, just past. So this tells us this wording tells us when the material on the law of group progress was written, just after 1935, because 1942 is ahead. In 1942, there will come another planetary inflow, of which we are all begged to avail ourselves. He doesn't use that kind of word unless he really means it. It must be terribly serious, and for which we are urged to make due preparation. Well, this was a decisive year for humanity, as humanity was almost lost towards the end of that year. But after the sun moved northwards, the war was won, and the Lords of Liberation had made their move in response to the invocation of humanity. Now, was there a special impact? I suppose the way we can look at this is to set up some sort of chart for any place, really. In 1942, what we can do is say, here's a new chart, only let's just say, let's call it December 21st, 1942, and it can be anywhere. And we can see more or less whether a full moon occurred at that time. So if we look at the lunar phase, and we apply, and we'll see there was a full moon, yes, December 22nd, a full moon, okay, in 1942. So, that was a special time with the full moon occurring during the 7-day period of the augmentation of Capricorn. And DK says, well, whenever that appears, when a full moon does occur during the, now we call it the festival week of the New Group World Servers, a tremendous opportunity is available. So it was at that time, or following that time, that the Lords of Liberation took their action, and that was the time when the forces, the fate of Germany was reversed at Stalingrad following the winter of 42 and into the first part of 1943. And there we had conditions, subjective conditions, working out in inner conditions which reversed the tide of the war and essentially meant that it was won and that the attack of the Black Lodge would prove unsuccessful. This week of group impact, occurring every 7 years, will run from December 21st to 28th. So note, I'll put this in just for marking, note that in 1942, the full moon occurred on the 22nd of December. And so it was within this week of group impact, a tremendous opportunity arising as a result. From December 21st to the 28th, and if this should at any time fall at the period of the full moon, the opportunity will be most significant. And I didn't realize when he was talking about that during the 1942 week of opportunity, well, there it is, 1942, December 22nd, indeed, that had in fact occurred. This possibility must be watched. This week should be regarded preeminently as the festival week of the new group of world servers, and after 1942 advantage must be taken of this period and special preparation must be made so that the fullest possible inflow of energy from the initiatory sign Capricorn will be available to humanity. We can say if these impacts do occur regularly during the age of Aquarius, then the theme of initiation will be powerful during the Aquarian age, because the intensification of the Capricorn energy will be especially noted. And if we think about that, think about the last decan ruled by Venus, which is the hierarchical ruler of Capricorn, and which for us is very much the planet of initiation. So we can see the initiatory potentials which will be occurring during the age of Aquarius, because Capricorn will be so strong. Okay, these new groups are appearing everywhere, all over the world. I think there are so many of them of positive intent today. Whether they fulfill all the requirements that DK has listed, well, probably not, but certainly some of them, and they are guided by soul energy. The groups upon the outer plane, with their diversity of names and stated aims, are not connected with this inner group which is sponsoring or projecting the new groups, except insofar as they have a definite, even if nebulous, connection. So let's just say not quite yet is there a correspondence between the outer groups and their qualities and the inner groups and their well-established spiritual qualities. But, maybe this has been somewhat altered over the years, because we're talking about 70 years ago now. And maybe there are increasingly on the outer plane groups which better reflect the inner soul laws. Certainly not fully by any means, and really the experiments, I think, are still somewhat tentative, but maybe more has come together. Certainly there are some efforts of spiritual of purposefully spiritual groups to do this, but remember that what Master DK said, that the occult groups are the most glamored of all the groups, so we are a little bit chastened by that remark and cannot think that there is so much superiority in the kind of groups that we form, maybe none at all. This becomes always possible when there are 3 members of the new group of world servers found in any one esoteric group. 3 members. Well, it's many people say, "Oh, I'm a member of the new group of world servers," but to be a true member, one has to be a second-degree initiate, and there are not so many second-degree initiates available. Because, after all, the members of the new group of world servers are to look for and to recognize and to assist those who are taking the first degree and the second degree, which tells us something about the status of the true servers. Well, they're appearing everywhere, all over the world, but they still have a long way to go before they are really connected with the sponsoring or projecting inner new groups. So the groups on the inner plane are much more developed than their outer projections, and I think we should simply say that. The groups on the inner planes are far more developed than their outer projections. So then, if there are 3 members of the new group of world servers found in any one exoteric group, and of course then let us assess ourselves and our co-workers and see, is it really so, and how would we know? It then becomes linked by a triple thread of golden light to the new group of world servers. The group, any such group, becomes linked by a triple thread of golden light to the new group of world servers and can be, in some measure, used. So this encourages all of us to meet a certain standard so that we can assure that at least 3 members of the new group of world servers are found in our particular group so that there can be a linking to this subjective group. This great and spiritual grouping of servers, the new group of world servers on the physical plane, is on the physical plane only very loosely linked. And we're speaking of the new group of world servers. On the astral plane, the linking is stronger and is based on the love of humanity. On the mental plane, the major linking takes place from the angle of the 3 worlds as a whole, and this is the intent, the will, the purpose to serve and save humanity by whatever means. This will be found on the plane of mind. This will be found on the plane of mind. So we have to, in this age of growing etheric potency, learn to bring through these inner motivations so that they demonstrate more fully on the external plane. And maybe, as I say, over the years, there has been such a demonstration. It will be apparent, therefore, that certain developments must have taken place in the individual before he can consciously become a functioning member of the new group of world servers, which is the principal group at this time definitely working under the law of group progress. Well, at least we know the new group of world servers does work under the law of group progress, and its projections to a lesser extent. And, hopefully more so now, and as the energies of the Piscean age clear away, and as the 6th ray potency becomes reduced, and certainly in its obstructionistic and reactionary modes, then these groups will certainly emerge. Well, he's given us quite a bit about the law of group progress, and so here are the requirements for the individuals. Okay, here are the requirements for individuals who would be members of the new group of, okay, it's got to be capitalized, new group of world servers. So, he must have the heart center awakened. How awakened? How much so? And be so outgoing in his behavior. So this is where extroversion is a good thing, right? A kind of extroversion, a kind of extraversion, or outgoing is of value here. That the heart is rapidly linked up with the heart centers of at least 8 other people. And rapidly so, not something that one has to labor over a long time. Rapid linking with at least 8 is important. The standards, then, for being a member of the new group of world servers are quite high, really, if you think of it. Well, of course, we cannot see inwardly and see what the linking is. Perhaps if there is true love for at least 8 other, let's say, co-workers, then maybe this linking is occurring. True love for at least 8 others who are working for human and planetary betterment. Groups of 9 awakened aspirants can then be occultly absorbed in the heart center of the planetary logos. These are very occult ideas. Well, when you think about it, the other 8, minimally, with whom you, as a prospective member of the new group of world servers, may be linked, may not be one group, because maybe someone in your group is linked to 8 others and not to the 8 to which you are linked. So it begins to be a linking network around the world. But as long as there are these groups of 9, even though the same person may take part in different groups of 9, these groups can be absorbed into the heart center of the planetary logos. And what is that? That heart center is the spiritual hierarchy of our planet. So it's kind of a hierarchical absorption, and we've seen before that when you look at the map here, there it is. There it is. This circle does include initiates. So let's say initiates of the 2nd degree, and they are all part of the planetary hierarchy. Here they are, various types of initiates. So they can indeed be absorbed into the hierarchy and brought to the edge of the ashram at least. So groups of 9 awakened aspirants. And let's just say one can be an aspirant to initiation and be a member of this kind of group. One can be an aspirant to initiation and still be a member of this type of group. I guess we have to, what does this do when we read information like this? This calls for an assessment of the quality of the spiritual SPL? No, not really. Spiritual quality of our relationships. And through it, through a group of 9, which DK, of course, was forming with his specialized groups, through it and through a group of 9, his life can flow. And through the heart center it does flow, and through these groups of 9 it can flow. And DK was working very hard to bring about true heart and loving relationships between the members of these groups, because they would not really be useful as members of as groups absorbed into the planetary heart center unless there was this linking with those specific 9. So through it his life can flow, and the group members can contribute their quota of energy to the life influences circulating throughout his body of manifestation. So this is all love promotes the divine circulatory flow. The above piece of information is only of interest to those who are spiritually awakened and will mean little or nothing to those who are asleep. So indeed, some really occult information is here. The importance of heart-linked nines. As I say, when the Tibetan, well, if you look out in the field, we can be linked to 8 others, and any one can be linked maybe to some of the ones we are linked to, but maybe not to, maybe to 8 others all together. So we have these different nines forming in different ways, but when the Tibetan calls 9 people together, as he did when he was forming his specialized groups, then the heart linking must be definite, and a 9 are really needed. Yes, in order to be a truly specialized group and not simply a group of 9 which has the heart center link. The head center of the individual, okay, the importance of heart-linked 9s, the individual must be linked to at least 8 others, and the linking must be in heart. So let's see exactly how he put that. The heart is rapidly linked up with the heart centers of at least 8 other people, and I suppose this is not sentimental love, this is group purposeful action. This is group consciousness is involved, because the heart is a group organ. All right, the head center must also be in process of awakening in the individual, and the ability to hold the mind steady in the light must be somewhat developed. Now, this is if a person is to be an individual before he can consciously become a functioning member, and that word consciously is important. Certain developments are required in the individual, and that's what we're looking at right now, these developments in the individual. Okay, there we go. So the head center also. So the in a way, through the head center, the individual in the new group of world servers must be something of a meditator. Because if you can hold the mind steady in the light of the soul, you can meditate. So the word somewhat is here. DK is not looking for the final hierarchical stage of development, but to a sufficient degree, so that the inner groups can work through the individual. And so we have the head, heart, and throat, really, I think, because some sort of creative activity must likewise be found, and the server must be active along some humanitarian, artistic, literary, philosophic, or scientific lines. So this has to do with the third. Here we have the throat center and the third aspect of divinity and the third ray. The first ray is so often associated with meditation, and that is, again, second in order on our second ray planet on our second ray solar system. And the first is the heart. So it's pretty much 2-1-3. That's the way most Masonic lodges are organized, 2-1-3, and until perhaps we are in the next solar system, the 1-2-3 will not be commonly found. So these are strong requirements for members of the new group of world servers. Heavy requirements for prospective members of the new group of world servers. All this involves personality integration and alignment, and that magnetic attractive appeal which is distinctive of all disciples in some form or another. So the work of integration and diffusion and alignment must be in process. The work of integration, fusion, alignment must be in process for an individual to be a member of the new group of world servers. So think about the people you are linked to. Think about the quality of those links. Think about the obstructions in those links, if they do exist, and how to rid the relationship of those obstructions so that, in fact, the linking of the heart centers and the work of the head and of your own mutual creativity, let's say, progresses. In this way, from the standpoint of esotericism, certain great triangles of energy will be found in the individual and consequently increasingly in humanity, and this will relate to DK's formation of the triangles work. So the triangle of head, heart, and throat will be united, and head, heart, and throat will be united within humanity. And when you think about the planetary union of head, heart, and throat, it is the growing relationship between Shambhala hierarchy and humanity. The mutually pointing arrows are not yet complete. We've seen them, how it was in the past, present, and how it will be in the future with all the triangle mutually interplaying. Then, too, the forces of creative life will circulate from the point within the head center, along the line to the heart, and then, with the throat center, form a triangle of fiery light. And this will characterize many human beings, and certainly will characterize those who are members of the new group of world servers. Let's just say, from all of this, from all of this technical information, we realize that the requirements are high for membership. And it's not just a question of, oh yes, I like my fellow human beings, I like to help them when I can, so I must be a member of the new group of world servers. One may be on the way, one may be magnetically attracted, but there are still many requirements to fulfill before one is really a member of the new group of world servers. So such is the way of group progress. And when this is being consummated, then the law of group progress begins definitely to function and to control in the individual who fulfills these requirements, and in the group, which also does, even more so. So it might be of interest if we here listed the recognized effects of the 5 laws with which we have been dealing, and I think we looked at these to a degree earlier, but this gives yet a different angle on the effects of the work of the new group of world servers and of those who respond to the laws, the 5 laws thus far discussed. So we have here tabulation. It's the law, the effect, the general physical effect, and the inner psychological reaction, and the quality. And really some different angles are displayed here. Let's see if we can. There are some interpolations here, and I suppose if we go to page 193 in Esoteric Psychology or thereabouts, maybe a bit later, let's say 195. Yeah, it is a bit later. We will find these spelled out: mental unity, the disciple, astral unity, and after the law of repulse comes something that I may not have put in here. No, I didn't, and I should. So this is okay, there's unity here, and we can call this MEN, mental unity, and the disciples. Yeah, I had left that out, or the disciples, soul unity, the initiates, and so forth. So the laws are divided in a way that they show the progress here of different types. Although any of these laws can be applied to any level, well, at least the earlier laws can be applied to any level, I would say. So let's take a look and see what thoughts come to us. The law is the law of sacrifice, and the effect is to bring forth world saviors. So certainly this is a law which is pervasive throughout the ladder of evolution. And it's pervasive throughout the universe. And the great sacrifice, Sanat Kumara, the extension of the planetary logos, operates in a way under this law. Deliberate death, or we might say, now I think what I should do is have very, very small letters, and yes, like that, and so that I can interpolate some things here as the thoughts come. So deliberate submersion. Submersion in a lower vibratory field. The reaction on the inside when conforming to this law: love for the Savior and the desire to follow, and well, we can see here a sixth ray effect. We do know that under Neptune and the sixth ray much sacrifice is performed. But we are given, in the original tabulation, we are given the fourth ray as connected with this force. Selflessness is associated with the sixth ray because it gives over its center, which it does not easily detect, to another center. It's giving all for something else under the impulse of devotion. So a true ridding in consciousness of the self is accomplished. Let's say the consciousness no longer entertains a focus on the lower self. Okay, so what will be the effect here? Let's see. Etheric or vital unity. The aspirants. I think I've left some important things out of here, and I should not have. Etheric, no, that can't be there. So under the law of magnetic impulse comes etheric or vital unity. Okay. Let's see. I'll have to make this a little clearer. But we see that step by step there's a progression. Etheric or vital unity. And we'll call it the aspirants. And that should also be, italicized. I didn't realize that I had not completed this the way it should have been. But okay, we're pretty close. So different ideas are emerging, as I said. Now, the law of magnetic impulse, I think it has to be connected also with the path of magnetic work, which receives energy from both, or involves energy from both Gemini and, he let us know later, in the rays and the initiation from Libra. Since this is a Libran law, it has to connect with other types of laws, rules, and paths that involve Libra. So here, magnetic impulse is connecting us with world religion. These are really different angles. And schools of thought. And the effect will be church organizations. Let's see. Oh, I went too far. Okay. Sorry for the delay here. And the inner reaction will be more mental, the love of ideas and philosophy. I think there must be some Buddhic connection with the love petals. And the quality, devotion, and idealism. So, although the second ray is usually linked with this law, the second ray is usually linked here, but the words devotion and idealism suggest the sixth ray. So it's very interesting. The law of magnetic impulse, a receptivity to the higher currents of thought. Interesting. With Libra, we'll say why in a minute, receptivity to the higher currents of thought. Now, just think, Libra is primarily, at this time, a third ray sign. Libra, primarily a third ray sign or constellation. So we have here a few different ideas. The sixth ray and the third ray are both implied in this tabulation, but the second ray is given at the outset of describing the law. So they will have their doctrines and their philosophies for sure. And magnetic impulse, you see, world religions bind people together, as do schools of thought. There must be a magnetic binding effect, a magnetic binding effect, a coming together, a pulling together of opposites. So there's a very cohesive factor, at least within the religion, intended, although when they're too much under the sixth ray, they can prove separative. Etheric or vital unity. The air signs in general are related to the etheric body. Maybe we have to include the balancing effect of Libra. The higher ethers are drawn into relationship with the lower ethers. Maybe etheric substitution is found here. And aspirants are responding to this, but we cannot say only aspirants because he's given us some very high effects when the forces of light begin to respond to the invocation. So I would say that this tabulation gives some areas of thought which really have to be pondered. Now, effect, general physical effect, reaction, psychological, and the quality. Okay. So now we're on the, and we should really say that's the first law, the second law. Now we're on the third law, which did relate to the sixth ray, and we have humanitarian activity as the general effect. The physical effect, in terms of actual outpicturings, the Red Cross and Allied Services. These are examples. Remember Master DK behind the Red Cross. Interesting, the Red Cross. I suppose it involves the red of blood and the sharing of blood with each other, the sharing of life. The inner psychological, spiritual response will be the love of humanity, and this is, of course, a given, but and sympathy and compassion will be emerging so as the quality. And now these are second ray qualities emerging. And sixth ray qualities emerged earlier, and third ray factors emerged under magnetic impulse. Well, let's just say we have what's called the universal love of the developed Aquarian, and we have Pisces as a sign of compassion. And both of these signs are intimately involved in this law of service, and the astral plane is connected water, the water of the astral plane. So both signs relate to water, Aquarius and Pisces. Probationers are considered in this context higher than the aspirants because they have a willingness to be tested, whereas the aspirants simply aspire and have not perhaps realized that they must willingly be tested. Now, so what we begin to see is there are many ways to put these laws together. I'm very grateful for kind of a new focus on this particular tabulation, because it had been one that had not been so much in my mind. The other tabulation with the symbols was at the forefront of my mind, the one that was found in Cosmic Fire. But this really has to be added to it. The general effect is the fight against evil. Of course, what people consider evil varies. And so one can, in fact, think one is fighting evil and be, in fact, fighting good, because one is fighting from a perspective which is overcome by glamour, illusion, and Maya. Crusades of all kind, these are the outer effects. And let's just say this will link the sixth ray with the first ray, which generally rules this law. Here we have the love of good, and so as the inner effect, and so this will be connected with the will to good, the love of the good. And when looking at the good, the beautiful, and the true, the good represents the first ray. But interestingly enough, it is discrimination. A fifth ray effect is the quality. And this is the discrimination between the good and the evil, or between, more occultian in terms of the planes, between the cosmic etheric planes and the cosmic dense physical plane, from which a residue of energy, where a residue of energy can be found, which works against what we consider to be the growing good and must be repudiated. So there is the fifth ray involved here, the sixth ray. The will to good seems like a kind of a second ray aspect of the will, with the will being generally on the first ray. So the love of the good as distinct, and it's the love of that which the soul indicates, really, as distinct from that which will not integrate into the good. The members of the Black Lodge are, in their present condition, non-integratable. They have to be worked and reworked before they are softened up so that they will to submit to the second aspect of divinity. We remember that originally, let's go back here, originally the fourth ray is indicated. So the fourth ray indicated, F-O-U-R, F-O-U-R. And originally, the second ray indicated. Remember that Master Kuthumi on the second ray is in a way behind the philosophical movements in the world. If philosophy is really the love of wisdom, then it is connected to the second ray. Is really the love of wisdom, it is connected with the second ray. And then with the law of service, well, I would say originally the sixth ray is indicated. Okay, and with the law of repulse, we would say originally the first ray is indicated. And with the law of group progress, to which we are now coming, originally the seventh ray is indicated. So in the law of repulse, what is demonstrated, the general effect, mental unity, this requires, in order to achieve discrimination, let's say, in order to, oh no, not right, in order to achieve discrimination, there must be mental focus and mental unity within a group. So the disciple emerges here. It's very interesting to me to see the categorization between the masses, the aspirants, how does he do it? The masses, yes, the aspirants, the probationers, the disciples, and what will he have here? The initiates. After all, the initiates is fitting because Capricorn is the sign of the initiates. So this pertains to the new group and to soul unity, which we have learned is a subjective unity. The outer effect is a tangible effect. This is an actual inner group. The psychological reaction will be the love of synthesis, which will connect it with the first and second ray, and the seventh. Connections thus with the first, second, and seventh rays. The first ray, a ray of pure synthesis. The second ray of synthesizing power, naught is but me, bringing all into a unity where one being is recognized. And the seventh ray, synthesis upon the physical plane, relating all factors on the physical plane such that they do not violate the perception of synthesis. I mean, they never really can violate the synthesis. There's always a synthesis. But there is an intended relationship which fits well with the prevailing synthesis. And interestingly enough, inclusiveness is given as the quality, and this is a second ray quality. Bringing together of all the groups. Remember, all the inner groups are but one group, and eventually this will be true of the outer groups. Well, I'm really quite amazed at this, having read as we've been doing what he's been saying, really new ideas are brought forth here, and they do give important angles of vision. I think what has to be made, maybe someone would like to do it, is a tabulation. The two tabulations have to be merged. There is maybe a tabulation here in a treatise on cosmic fire. I'm going to look here for golden bird. Well, maybe I'm not going to find it. A treatise on, let's just say, bird hovering. No. Bird above. Yes, maybe bird above. Okay. Let's see. A rosy cross with a bird hovering above it. Okay. Well, it's in this vicinity that the chart in a treatise on cosmic fire will be found, and I'm not sure exactly where. I have pulled it out before and examined it. Let's just see if we use the word earn. Maybe there's only one. Well, it's law 7. We do definitely have this area of the book where the 7 hierarchies. I wonder how this will work. Let's try this. No, this is not going to be it. But in the vicinity of these pages will be all the 7, can we, yes, there we go. The laws and symbols, 1220. Okay, well, let's try to open that up. And here, this tabulation must be brought together with the tabulation we are now studying, because there are aspects to it which are not found, which are only found in one or the other. So let's just say here include the following tabulation, and we'll probably get a real mess here. Yeah, we did. It has to be maybe much smaller if we're going to be able to see anything about it. I'm going to make it almost number 8. Well, that's closer. That's closer. And we can see the typos there. And here, maybe I'll get these arranged. Okay, so I got these into a bit of order, and we see how important it would be to, all 7 laws are given here, and different things are emphasized. The exoteric name, the symbol, and the ray energy. And I've incorporated the ray energy here when I say that it was originally thus and so. But the particular tabulation that we're given thus far in the esoteric astrology book, the psychology book, is not the full tabulation. So blending these tabulations together would be a task for someone. I have discussed some differences and interpolated some differences, but notice here the effect, the general physical effect, the inner psychological reaction and quality are not the same as the exoteric and esoteric names, the symbol, and the ray energy. And even in cosmic fire and esoteric psychology, sometimes different points of view are added. And for instance, the position of the bird, a rosy cross with a bird hovering above it, and here we see simply a statement, a rosy cross with a golden bird. So the bird hovering above it tells us something more, doesn't it? And then when we come down here, yes, there is greater elaboration. So all of this material has to be brought together. And I would simply suggest, going over what I talked about at the end of a treatise on cosmic fire, because that's where this material on the laws of the soul, or the laws of group work as they are called, can be found. Well, that brings us to an end of the law of group progress. And there is the summary of the laws of the soul. Now remember, we also, before getting into the law of group progress, we did discuss the first 5 laws and their relationships. And perhaps running up here to where this starts, sorry for the, I think this is still, the law of group progress is a very long discussion. Yeah. Okay. We find it, I think, right here. So we're beginning with some different laws, and here is also a discussion of the 5 laws. So in fact, the Tibetan does summarize the laws in various places. Like, for instance, right after we deal with the law of repulse, we are dealing with a movement through the 4 laws thus discussed, only he views them from a different point of view. Those who chose occultly to die, so he's obviously talking about the law of sacrifice. Then, secondly, the law of magnetic impulse, but he doesn't necessarily call it by that name. And eventually, we're getting, well, here's law 2. Here it is. And then law 3 is discussed, and law 4, always giving different insights. So these listings of the laws are very important when they are done in a sequential manner. So we have this listing of 4 laws following the law of repulse, before the law of group progress. Then we go lower, and we have this, at the beginning of every law I interpolated, or I abstracted from the cosmic fire tabulation, a little bit of a preamble. Actually, the Tibetan himself did that. And then we go to 2 more listings or tabulations of all of the laws together. Really, there was so much on the law of group progress. How's your speed reading going? Okay. I hate to waste your time this way, but we're getting there now. So I'm talking about the sequential tabulations of the laws. And I think, sorry, the loss of about a minute here. Here we are, the 7 laws of the soul tabulation. So remember, what came before this? No, that's not what I want. I want one of these. So we'll say that after the law of repulse discussion came a listing of 4 laws of the soul. Laws of the soul. And presenting different points of view. Then came this tabulation. this tabulation below. Also, different points of view. So we cannot learn fully about these laws of the soul unless we read the tabulations in relation to each other. Then, in a treatise on cosmic fire, TCF, is another tabulation which has been imported below. And that is the foundational tabulation, which gives the esoteric and exoteric names and the symbols, and there they are. So in addition to the definite discussions on each law, we want to check these arrangements of the laws side by side so we can get a sense of how they progress one to another. Now, here we're taking up two laws in just 2 pages, and I probably will run over the 2-hour limit I set for myself here. I did really do this before when discussing these laws in a treatise on cosmic fire. And I borrowed text from esoteric psychology to talk about it, but then at least briefly we will look at this. This is the law that correlates with the law of service. This is the 6th law of the soul, correlating with the law of service. And it has, I think, much of the Jupiter in it, and also the 3rd ray. We can now with great brevity, however, touch upon the 6th law and the 7th, for we will speak of them together. The other 5 laws worked out into definite activity upon the physical plane. Maybe this is not yet the case for these other 2 laws. Maybe not yet the case for the other 2 laws. The effect or consequences of the impulse behind them produce the working out of the purpose of the Most High. Well, we can call that, for practical purposes, the planetary logos, and can be recognized upon the plane of phenomena. They can all be so recognized, but at this time, the consciousness of humanity is such that they can all, in other words, all 7 can be so recognized, but at this time the conscious awareness of humanity is such that only in 5 instances can the effect of these laws be noted. And we've looked at some of the effects, haven't we, in the tabulation? New groups, the fight against evil, humanitarian activity, world religions and schools of thought, world saviors and the Christ. Interesting that some of the very highest are found in the beginning. Churches and organizations are tangible effects, so is the Red Cross, so are crusades of all kind, so are the new group of world servers for those who can see. So some of these effects can be noted, but really only by the most advanced of the world aspirants, and of course by disciples and initiates. The disciple and the initiate can dimly begin to recognize the effect of the 6th and the 7th laws, but no one else at this time, not the masses, and not the members, not the aspirants even, per se. So these are laws yet to come, and they do correlate with the idea that given any system of 7, the highest 2 are considered to be occult. Given the 7 planes, planes 1 and 2 are considered to be occult, and the 5 lower planes more exoteric. So the 5 laws we've just been given are the laws that, in a sense, correlate with Brahma, the Brahma aspect, and are therefore more exoterically visible, accessible. Now, these 2 laws are not capable of interpretation as above, because only those who are initiated or in preparation for initiation can begin to understand them. And since this is a book for first-degree initiates, not third-degree initiates, they don't have a place here. So these interpretations would not be suitable in a book for first-degree initiates. The enlightenment which is the result of initiation is necessary before one can touch the idea behind these expressions of purpose. Okay, so they are remote and inaccessible, but I suppose some hints will be given. We shall not therefore take any time dealing with the law of expansive response or with the law of the lower four, beyond giving two ancient stanzas which will convey much to the initiate, but may only be sounding words and meaningless symbolic phrases to the average reader and student. And we did really go over these. Maybe some repetition could be used here. The sun for the law of expansive response, this one. But I would really suggest going to the programs on a treatise on cosmic fire for a fuller exposition here. Law, but who knows, maybe something new will have come in. Expansive response. The sun in all its glory has arisen and cast its beams across the eastern sky, and this suggests the illumination of which DK spoke. This is initiation. And we are in the realm of the spiritual triad. But these are laws of the soul. Do they? If the law of repulse begins to be active only at the fourth initiation, what about these laws? Later still, the union of the pairs of opposites produce, and this is achieved, of course. This is achieved in the second law in the cycles of the time and space, both clouds and mists, as when fire and water meet. And these veil a mighty conflagration. A great fire is raging, and I suppose when different types of energies come together, there is a period of adjustment required. A period of adjustment is required. So a mighty conflagration, you kind of wonder here whether when the monad and the personality are really merged, this signals the conflagration of the causal body. Well, that would take us to the fourth degree. The flood pours forth, the ark floats free, the ark which was found in the Blessed One of the second ray. The flames devour. The flood of great fiery energy, I suppose. The three stand free, and again the mists envelop. Above the clouds of earth a sign shines forth. Only the eye of vision sees this sign, so presumably this is really the eye of the initiate. Only the heart at peace after the conflagration can hear the thunder of the voice, which issues from the thunder of the voice. His symbol is the thunder. His symbol is the thunder, the word that cycles down the ages. So this, from Esoteric Psychology 1 and the stanza of the second ray, and the dark depths of cloud. And this suggests the clouds that gather around the mountaintop. This suggests the fifth ray stanza. Remember, this is the fifth law. No, it's the sixth, sorry. This suggests the fifth ray stanza from EP1, where the clouds swirl around the mountain tops and veil them. only an understanding of the law which elevates. And the law which elevates is law number 5. Law 5, and lifts can teach the man of fire and son of water to enter into mist. From there he climbs, let's go to that so we can see here in esoteric psychology, let's say around page 66. Well, this is the second ray. His symbol is the thunder, the word that cycles down the ages. So there are many references to earlier stanzas that describe the rays. But if we go forward to the 5th ray stanza, the thunders crash around the mountaintop, dark clouds conceal the form, the mists, there we go, arising from the watery spheres serve to distort the wondrous, and then a blank occurs, found within the secret place. The form is there, its note is sounding forth. So we're going to deal with these stanzas as well and try to come up with some suggestions as to what they mean. Certainly the complete meaning will not be available to an interpreter like myself, or maybe to none of us, but at least we'll have some indication of the meaning. So that is from Esoteric Psychology 1, and the word mist is there. So the man of fire and the son of water to enter into mist. And this seems to be the area between. The man of fire is the spirit. The son of water is the personality. And we have to, and the mist is the middle point. From there he climbs onto the mountaintop, and there again stands free. So this is called expansive response. It is a response to the triadal energies, and it has to do with the coming together of the polar opposites in such a way that a temporary condition of obscuration is created from which the man can free himself and achieve initiation. Let's just say that the sight of every man before initiation is obscured, and let's call it the mist. But achievement is possible, and all this is prompted by the man of fire. Of course, a lesser interpretation has to do with the fire of mind and the waters of the astral plane. And there a glamorous mist is produced. A glamorous mist is produced from which man must extricate himself and climb into the clear, cold air of the mountaintop. Now let's see, though that's from the old commentary, and much more could be said, and frankly, much more pondering is required there. The triple freedom thus achieved has naught to do with earth or water or with fire. So these are not to do with the lower elements, at least. It is a freedom triple in its kind, which greets the man who passes freely from the sphere of earth, into the ocean of the watery sphere, and thence onto the burning ground of sacrifice. Well, you know, in some ways, the cosmic planes are suggested. the cosmic astral plane and the cosmic mental plane, spheres of water and fire. The sun augments the fire, it dissipates the mist, and dries the earth, and thus the work is done. Well, I think we can be talking simply about the initiatory process. Okay. I-N-I-Y, I suppose. I-N-I-N-I-R. Initiatory process. So we're not talking about so much the happenings within the personality as transcending them. It is a freedom triple in its kind, which greets the man who passes freely from the sphere of earth. There are transcendent meanings here, into the ocean of the watery sphere, the cosmic astral plane, and thence onto the burning ground of cosmic sacrifice. But of course we can talk simply about the liberation of man into the mountaintops of initiations. If the law of repulse is active, especially after the third degree, then so will this be. This is the rising sun, and dries the earth. This is a case of liberation. It almost takes us, I think, into the sphere of mastership. What we have seen is that some of these laws have application to man, but that the planetary logos applies them, and that the solar logos applies them as well. And I can see the cosmic applications here. I think all this needs to be read again. I know we're past our 2 hours, but it seems wisest to keep these together. They are beyond my total understanding. I have to freely admit that. But some hints of thoughts can arise. The sun, in a way, it is the sun of spirit. It is the true identity of the man, the spirit, or the liberated soul into the spiritual triad. All of these are suns. Even the personality is a sun, of a lesser kind, of course. The soul in the causal body is a sun. The liberated consciousness onto the triadal sphere is a sun, because after all, that is the personality of the monad, and the monad itself is like a great sun, a great source of light and power and love. So something in man, in all its glory, has arisen and cast its beams across the eastern sky. A great enlightenment has occurred and will liberate the man into expansive worlds. The true identity is liberated into expansive worlds beyond the usual lower ego, and maybe even beyond the soul on the higher mental plane. The union of the pairs of opposites produce in the cycle of time and space both clouds and mists. Well, this happens on a lower turn of the spiral and on a higher turn of the spiral. This happens on both on a lower turn of the spiral and on a higher turn, because we can be talking about the monad and the personality as well as the soul and the personality. We can even be talking about the mental plane and the astral plane. So the final union of the pairs of opposites is coming, and that would be soul, that would be the spirit itself, the monad, and all that resides below, the personality, soul infused. These veil a mighty conflagration. Well, the hint is for the fourth initiation. And the monad does have its part in provoking the fourth initiation. Did I say fourth? I meant fourth. So the monad has its part in provoking and impelling the fourth initiation. A conflagration has to do with the fire of spirit which induces the fiery disintegration of the causal body. There are different ways, of course, that it falls apart, but basically it's a supernova. The flood pours forth, and it seems to me this is not about a flood of water, but of fire, the fire of the monad. The flood pours forth, the ark floats free. The Great One built himself an ark. We have to remember from the Blessed One stanzas, the Blessed One built himself an ark. And this, of course, has to do with the second ray monad, but to a certain extent, whenever the monad takes vehicles, it is in a way building an ark. Now that ark has held the polarities, the animals 2 by 2. It has held the different forms of lives. The ark, it looks like the ark is devoured by the flames induced by the monad, and the three stand free. And then again the mist envelop? Well, we'll see. What are the three? What are the three? Are these the three aspects of mind, as when three minds unite? Three minds unite? That's a good one. I want to have that. Three minds unite, and we'll have to do it this way, because otherwise we will not have the proper capitalization. Three minds unite. Okay. Right. Three minds unite. Okay. Or are we talking about the soul-infused personality, the spiritual triad, and the monad? These also are three that could stand free. Right, the three stand free. Well, it sounds to me there has been a great liberation here from a conflagration. So, liberation from a conflagration suggests the great fire of the fourth initiation. And then the identity is released into the expansive realms of the spiritual triad, and perhaps can be involved perhaps in active service, which is found on the atmic plane. Well, anyway, there were many opportunities within the spiritual triad for the liberated identity. Ultimately, of course, that identity really is the monad in extension. Well, above the clouds of earth, a sign shines forth. Now, what is earth in this particular case? And I have an idea. I'll just suggest it. Can earth be the dense physical body of the solar logos and of the planetary logos, of course, from another system? And what we have is liberation onto the cosmic etheric planes here. A rosy sun. Rose, the color of love. Well, it definitely involves the Buddhic plane, for sure, and maybe beyond. Oh, loving service is involved in the law of service, compassion and all that. A rosy sun, which is the symbol, would fit with that loving service. a flaming rosy sun. It's the third ray adapting factor, right, and it fits with the law of service. But remember what the law of service gives us. The law of service gives us love of humanity, sympathy, and compassion, and hence connected with the Buddhic plane. There are so many connections here, and I suppose, I'm not exactly giving us connections which are linear or available to the linear understanding. I'm, in a way, going all over the place. I realize that. So, the triple freedom has not to do with earth, not to do with the non-principled part, not to do with the non-principled part of the planetary logos and solar logos, their dense physical bodies. It is a freedom triple in its kind, triple in its kind. Oh my goodness. Well, this really does suggest the spiritual triad, which is triple, and most of it, and all of it beyond the dense physical body of the planetary logos, and most of it beyond the dense physical body of the solar logos. So triple in its kind suggests to me encountering the spiritual triad after the conflagration. That's what this suggests to me. So all this suggests the encountering in freedom of the spiritual triad after the great conflagration. So if this is taking us into the realm of the fourth initiation, remember what the true soul is, because the true soul or ego is found in the spiritual triad. It's not just what's on the higher mental plane. Maybe the next law will take us in some respect to the fifth initiation. Let's see. Which greets the man who passes freely from the sphere of earth into the ocean of the watery sphere, and thence on to the burning ground of sacrifice. So, it's coming clearer to me now. It's not only the cosmic view, but also considering the higher mental plane as the desert, the Buddhic plane as the ocean, and the Atmic plane as the fiery sphere. So, it is the spiritual triad which is greeting the liberated man, and he can now function within that. I feel more satisfied with that. You have to keep pondering and go along. He passes freely from the sphere of earth, from the dense physical body, from the dense physical body of the planetary logos into the ocean of the watery sphere, which is, I want to call it Buddhic, and thence onto the burning ground of sacrifice, Atmic, before entering the monad, which entry requires much sacrifice, just as entering the realm of soul does. All right, well, you may come up with other interpretations. The sun augments the fire. It dissipates the mist and dries the earth, and thus the work is done. So, in a way, the lower interpretation is of the soul as the sun. And initiation is achieved, and the glamorous mists are dissipated, and the personality is no longer affected by glamour. But the sun can also be the monad. And even the personality, well, let's see, the sun augments the fire, so let's just say the monad fans the flames of the conflagration at the fourth initiation. It dissipates the mist and dries the earth. Well, the mist can be interesting. Think of the nebula. Veiling. Nebula veiling. So think of that which remains after the conflagration. And it dries the earth. All remaining vehicles are rendered fit to be parts of the body of fire. What's happening here is the body of fire is being created after the great conflagration, after the fourth degree, FR, fourth degree. And so we will have, in a way, the monad, the sun, will be, in this case, the monad in manifestation. And we will have that body of fire, which is discussed in a treatise on cosmic fire somewhere around page 169, I believe, or 168, or is it 167? I think it's just before 169, more like, no, maybe it's more like 166. The bodies of the seven heavenly men. Here it is, 167, right before that. This is the body of fire. The centers, therefore, when functioning properly, form the body of fire, which eventually is all that is left, first to the man in the three worlds and later to the monad. That's what I'm talking about. The formation of the body of fire, eventually. This is the body incorruptible or indestructible, spoken of by St. Paul, and is the product of evolution and the perfect blending of the three fires, which ultimately destroys the form, though projects its own type of form to function in those worlds. So when the form is destroyed, all that's left is this intangible spiritual body of fire, one pure flame, distinguished by 7 billion centers. So we're on our way here to the production of the body of fire, realizing that God is a consuming fire. Okay. So the sun augments the conflagration of the causal body in the process of destruction. It dissipates the mist, whatever debris. The mist is glamour on the lower plane, but supernova debris after the destruction of the causal body, and dries the earth so that it can be used by the monad, can be used by the monad. In a way, also, well, there's another way that we can look at this. Eventually, another and still higher way is that the spiritual triad must not veil or obscure the monad. And the triad can be considered a higher type of waters. But that's a bit of a stretch. Well, there are several ways then to look at this. The lower creation of the mist, when the mind and desires come together, mind and astral plane, and out of that mist the man emerges onto the mountaintop of initiation. Then there's the destruction of the causal body, which creates a great debris and needs to be cleared away so that the revelation of the fifth degree can occur. And one wonders then, is there a sense in which the triad itself has to be destroyed so it no longer avails the monad, and here we would have the monad about ready to go on its great adventure and no longer go down into the waters. See, the 5 lower planes are waters or matter when compared to the monad, and these waters must also be destroyed. And there may even come, there may come a destruction of the vehicle on the higher 3 levels of the atmic plane. That mysterious vehicle, which is kind of like a causal body, a kind of higher causal body, which, when destroyed, gives free entrance into the monad. Well, you know, I've got many ideas here. Aries is the birthplace of ideas, but not necessarily the birthplace of well-coordinated ideas. Anyway, lots of ideas are present, so some people will be able to take them and work them into a really coherent system when the day comes. Well, I think that's about as elaborate as I've ever been with the law of expansive response. The law of the lower 4 is even more difficult. Let's look at them. The law of the lower 4, I mean, now we are definitely into the triad. We are definitely, into the spiritual triad, which is the true ego and thus the truer soul than the type of consciousness found on the higher mental plane. Oh, 4 sons of God went forth, but only one returned. 4 saviors merged themselves in 2, and then the 2 became the 1. I think, the fusion of planes, the fusion of entities, the fusion of aspects, the fusion of planetary logoi, in fact. I've dealt with this prior to the great synthesis. I've dealt with this in the earlier reading. Maybe I put the cart before the horse and did Cosmic Fire before this book, but I discussed it there when doing Cosmic Fire. These 2 ancient writings, one mystical and the other occult, so let's just say the one whose symbol is the rosy sun, the law of expansive response is mystical, and the other is the law of the lower 4 is occult, convey but little to most minds. I think I'll have to include my own, but I think it conveyed a bit more to me earlier. Let's see if I can retrace some of this. And this we can easily see. Therefore it does not profit us to consider them too carefully. The time is not yet. These are given us how, these are given, that doesn't make sense. These are given us how in stimulating comprehension. Now? Is that it? Now? Given to us now in stimulating comprehension? I'm not sure. No sense here. We stand today on the verge of great things. Humanity is on its way with renewed impulse. It stands no longer at the crossroads because humanity is the world disciple. But irrevocable decisions have been made, and the race is moving forward along a path that will lead it eventually into light and peace. So was this maybe written in the 1940s? Not sure. Because there were some very important decisions made in the 1940s which really would have liberated humanity into or onto a path which indeed would lead forward without going into materialism and retardation. It will find its way into the peace which passeth understanding, because it will be a peace which is independent of outer conditions and which is not based upon what present humanity defines as peace. So this will be maybe some reflection of the peace of Shambhala, and as the new group of world servers takes over the Wesak festival, Shambhala will come closer through Taurus to humanity. The peace which lies ahead of the race is the peace of serenity and of joy, a serenity based upon spiritual understanding, and let's say maybe some of this in the Aquarian age. And a serenity is not an astral condition but a soul reaction, and a serenity that is not an astral condition. These qualities are not achieved as the result of disciplining the emotional nature, but demonstrate as a natural automatic realignment with the worlds in which serenity already exists. These two qualities of the soul, serenity and joy, are the indication that the soul, the ego, the one who stands alone, is controlling or dominating the personality, circumstance, and all environing conditions of life in the three worlds. Now, what I've done, there's so little said about these laws that I just went back into Cosmic Fire, and maybe it will help us interpret just a bit the law of the lower four. 4 sons of God went forth, but only one returned. 4 saviors merged themselves in 2. Yes, there we go. Only one returned, and then the 2 became the one. This has to do with the merging of chakras, the merging of planets, the merging of vehicles. When 4 go forth, 2 they are divided 2 and 2, and each pairs of 2 merges into a 1, and then the 2 remaining merge into the final 1. So it has to do, I think, with that which descends into manifestation and returns on the day of synthesis, the day of absorption. One wonders about the synthesizing planets here as well, and their correspondences in the microcosmic sphere. The final, I'm going to get a little bracket here. The final 2 laws concerning group activity can only be, notice, these are the laws of group activity. Here he talks about them as laws of the soul, particularly, but the soul is group conscious. So here we have group activity particularly. Both are correct. They are laws of the group and laws of the soul. The final 2 laws concerning group activity can only be very briefly treated, as their true significance is only apparent to pledged disciples. Well, I would go even beyond this status, because he tells us really that something much more is required of those who will understand these final laws. Let's see if he talks about it over here. He says much more about the law of expansive response, only to the initiate. So not just the pledged disciple, but the initiate. can understand these laws, unless he means by the pledged disciple a higher form of pledged disciple. I'm going to make this bracket a little smaller in order to work in this. I think that's better. They concern primarily the astral and mental natures. So the astral nature, perhaps the law of expansive response, and the mental nature, I suspect, the law of the lower four, and therefore the corresponding vehicles of the group units. So they concern groups of units on those two planes especially, and these groups perhaps have not yet found or called together external groups through which they can express. Okay, there are different kinds of perspectives offered here. Now, but everything he said about these laws is right here under our eye. A group, it should be remembered, when it is functioning on the physical plane, is found in a still larger form on the astral and mental. So we have been given examples of the externalization of the first 5 laws. You know what I'm talking about here. We just we had this. Here are the externalizations: Red Cross crusades of all kinds, New Group World Servers. These are the externalization, the outer effects, the effect on the general physical effect. But apparently for the last 2 laws, there is no such sense of externalization. We cannot find their externalizations, not yet. Just as the astral body of man is larger than his physical body and therefore has built into its structure a larger number of atomic units, so the group containing astrally considered more units. So a group contains astrally considered more units than on the physical plane. And this is certainly also true of the mental plane, I suppose. Also true of the mental plane. The laws we are touching upon concern the relation of the physical plane units to those units who form part of the group and yet are functioning without physical plane sheaths or vehicles. So really we are managing to bring through the guidance of groups that know much more through these laws, much more guidance, or say through these laws, the guidance of those who know much more is brought through to the physical plane units who can respond to them. The same idea must be applied to the units devoid of physical vehicle who form a component part of the mental body of the group. So the hierarchical perspective can more easily be brought through here. These 2 laws are called the law of expansive response, the law of the lower 4. So these not much is said here in Cosmic Fire at all, really, as we can see. These laws only become operative in units on the physical plane which are becoming responsive consciously to those group workers who are discarnate and, let's just say, thus the ability to communicate with those who are more deeply part of the ashram, although the ashram itself now will be found increasingly on the Buddhic levels. So coming back to this idea that 4 sons of God went forth, but only one returned. 4 saviors merged themselves in 2, and then the 2 became the one. You know, I begin to wonder about the analogy here of the 3 synthesizing planets and whether we can find, and Jupiter. 3 Sin PS and Jupiter. It seems like Jupiter would be a great absorber. Maybe, this is an idea, maybe Jupiter absorbs many planets and then merges with Saturn. So that's the Jupiter-Saturn merging contains all that is in the Brahmic realm. Jupiter-Saturn, the Jupiter-Saturn merging contains all within the Brahmic realm. Then there must be a merging of, well, how does this done? Will Saturn merge with Neptune, or will Uranus and Neptune merge, and the resulting unit merge with that which Saturn offers? Then will Uranus and Neptune merge, and the result of that merging then merge with what Saturn offers. At length there will be but one, and will it be predominantly Neptune, since this is a second-ray solar system. Well, that's the very highest idea of the merging that we can deal with in our solar system. Eventually, there will be but one planet remaining, which contains all the others, and it will merge with the Sun, at least as I understand that at this point. But I'm also thinking of the more microcosmic situation, which we might call the merging of the ethers, because there are 4 ethers on every one of the planes, and eventually, I suppose, as there is a retraction of the dense physical plane and the etheric plane onto subtler planes, only one will remain and then be absorbed into the next higher plane, and thus it will go. Only one will remain, and the next higher plane will receive it. So there's likely to be a kind of microcosmic correspondence here. We are finally going to have a synthesis in the Sun. Finally, there will be a synthesis in the Sun, and this may equate with mastership represented by the Sun. So finally, the man will be a master or even a liberated monad. Now, I've interpreted these things in a quite high manner, so maybe too high, maybe too high. We have the planetary synthesis and the microcosmic synthesis. But now I want to look closer at the microcosmic synthesis. In this way, 4 sons of God went forth. Well, who goes forth? How can we look at this? The monad goes forth as the triad, as the soul in the causal body, as the personality. These are 4. Monad, triad, soul, and personality. Monad, triad, soul, and personality. Now, there will be a final retraction and only one will remain. And that will be the monad in extension returning to itself. Now, how this would exactly work out, let's see, it's 2 and 2. How does this go? 4 saviors merged themselves in 2, and the 2 became the 1. Well, there are different ways of doing that, but ultimately what we have is a return to the monad. We do know a couple of things we do know. We do know that soul and personality merge. Now, they are, in a way, saviors, certainly saviors of the lower life. Here's another angle. We know that triad and soul-infused personality merge. Then, perhaps, the merging of the spiritual triad containing all that has been of soul and personality merging with the monad. And only the monad remains. The monad goes forth as what we might call, well, it stays on its own plane in a way, but it goes forth as the monad in extension, as the spiritual triad, as the soul, and as the personality. Now, that monad in extension is really all of them, is really all of the lower 3. And eventually there is a merging of the soul and personality, merging of the, so that's a 1, and a merging of the, of the triad and the soul, and then a merging of the triad and the monad. That's one way of looking at it. Another way of looking at it, way of seeing this, is the merging of the soul and personality and the merging of the monad and the triad, and a final merging of the monad triad with the soul-infused personality. That's another way to see it. What we have been noticing is that each law of the soul rises higher in the planes it concerns, and in the initiations it concerns. We've already seen what looks to be like a liberation into the triad with the law of expansive response, because the 3 are greeted by the one who is being liberated from the causal body. The 3 are liberated from the conflagration, and the expansive life of the triad is then possible for the rising monad in extension. Now we have the last one, which seems, what really are the lower 4? I'm going to give, third ray out of control here, but I'm going to give you yet another possibility. What might be the lower 4? The sun may be the 5th. The 4 sons of God, okay, I wonder if I can have the 4 sons of God may be the monad in extension, the spiritual triad, the soul, and the personality. Okay, so once the monad goes forth, it is itself an extension of the monad which stays at home, the highest sun, and it generates the triad, it generates the soul, it generates the personality. So there are really four, which is correct, okay. There are really four here, with the sun monad being the peak of the pyramid. So the monad goes forth. Of course, from where does it really go forth? Maybe they'll go plain in a certain respect, but I won't get into that. It goes forth. It is itself a unit, which underlies the triad. And then that monad and extension and the triad generate the soul. And then that monad in extension and the triad and the soul generate the personality. Now we have four. There will be a merging here. The merging of the soul and personality, and the merging of the triad, which is underlay by the monad and extension, with the soul-infused personality. Now, the results of these mergings finally create a one, which is the final one remaining, is the monad in extension containing the fruits of the triad, soul, and personality. And this one will finally merge with the sun. It returned to merge with the sun. Now, I want to point out here a kind of higher analogy. Well, yeah, it's going to be that chart, but something which is there. There it is. There will be a merging below of these planets, and a merging maybe of this merge with one of the synthesizing planets, and then a merging of that with the remaining synthesizing planet. I'm not sure how this merging goes, but what I do want to point out is that the day will come when all of this, these 9 as they are here represented, are a one. Only one returned. Something went forth from the sun as the monad, which generated all these planets. And finally, in the period of retraction, only one remains. That one then merges with the sun. So you see the analogy here, because what I'm saying is that the monad sun sent forth the monad in extension, which became the spiritual triad, which together became the soul, or at least, well, maybe the word became is not good, which caused the emergence of the spiritual triad, which together caused the emergence of the soul, with the help of the solar angel, and which all together cause the emergence of the personality. Now, these four out there, out from the monad, have to collapse. The four which were generated from the monad have to collapse into one. How this is done, there are different roads to this collapse, and I could not possibly presume to know the method by which four become two and two become one. But eventually that will occur. We could say that soul and personality together are faced with the triad, which is underlied by the monad and extension, and they come together, and all that is left is the monad and extension having absorbed it all. Well, there are different ways I've suggested, and I cannot do other than suggest that only one is left out of the four sons of God that have gone forth. They are sons of God because, God is the monad, and all that go forth from the monad are sons of God. The monad extension as the generating impulse, the spiritual triad, the soul on the higher mental plane, and the personality in the lower worlds. All of them are sons of God, and of these four which went forth from the monad, only one returns to the monad, and it is that extension of the monad which has generated a lower three and which has reabsorbed all that a lower three has harvested. Well, now we certainly begin to see why DK says that we are not going to be able to fully understand this seventh law, but it does seem it might be what I call law of the lower four, law of the lower four returning to the sun, which is the condition of mastership. And actually, finally, Chohanship, where in which the sun is truly free, as it was in the beginning. So please forgive me for this rambling speculation. I've discussed some different ways that we can interpret this, and they do finally have a microcosmic meaning, that as much as was done by the lower four, that much will be returned to the source of the lower four. Well, friends, all right, that's it. We are at the end, and well, we're certainly at the end of all I should say, and I've probably said too much. But there is that compulsion to try to interpret that which is given, of course realizing that mistakes will definitely be made because the point of view is not large enough to, or subtle enough to see what really is involved. But this is anyway the end of Laws of the Soul, webinar commentary number 25, EP2, and we are, whatever page that is. I don't know the page. It ends somewhere here. Maybe if I went into this, that would be a treatise on cosmic fire, and that would not be good. So, in search of the page, oh yes, it's right around page 200, isn't it? Right, the law of the lower four, and we reach an end, exactly. Page 200. So, and where do we begin? Well, we don't begin immediately in this book again. Beginning with, what shall we call it? The 7 rays and 7 stanzas. 7 rays and 7 stanzas from Esoteric Psychology, Volume 1. Maybe we should have begun there at the very beginning, but perhaps we'll be in a position to do more accurate interpreting after having read some of the more specific, concrete manifestations of these rays in action. So, the sun is shining against the mirror in back of me, and I can barely see. I think it's time to call it quits for a little while. So, I appreciate your patience, especially probably your patience during the last hour of this discussion of the law of expansive response into the triad and the law of the lower four, which returns as the one to the originating source, which we call the sun, because they are sons of God, and our return to a very high state, finally, of monadship, I suspect, at the 6th initiation. So I hope you get something out of all this, and we will be back together on the next occasion. We'll see you then. Study hard.